Hello, my name is Timonda Temekotula, and the study I've chosen focuses on consumer habits regarding textile waste and the fast fashion industry. Textile waste is quickly becoming one of the biggest sources of waste worldwide and is having devastating effects on the environment. The Netherlands is a very forward thinking country in terms of sustainability, and Amsterdam is one of the world's hotspots for shopping and fashion. This led me to begin to research on what can be done to solve this problem that seems to be increasing only over time in a relatively new industry. I studied shopping habits in Amsterdam, in Kalverstraat, and the aims of this was to find out if fast fashion consumers are aware of its effects on the environment, and I would also like to find out ways in which fashion can be made more sustainable if consumer habits are in fact influencing the amount of textile waste generated through fast fashion. This led me to creating my research question: to what extent does fast fashion consumer shopping habits have an influence on textile waste within the Netherlands? I carried on my research on Kalverstraat, Amsterdam, um, where I was targeting fast fashion consumers. These include consumers of shops such as Forever 21 and Snipes. Um, the three research methods that I would use over the course of this research are face to face interviews, observations, and target group user testing. I traveled to Amsterdam, in particular Kalverstraat, where I conducted face to face interviews. The aim of these interviews was to understand the current shopping habits of the sample group and what is influencing that. My current sample group was fast fashion customers from the stores Snipes and Forever 21, where I asked them the following questions: how often do you go shopping? How many pieces of clothing do you purchase each time you go shopping? How long would you estimate your clothing lasts? Which pieces of clothing do you purchase on a regular basis? How do you dispose of clothing you no longer want? Why do you choose to stop wearing certain pieces of clothing? Why do you decide to buy new clothes? Is it often cheaper for you to purchase new clothing rather than repairing old clothing? Do you know how to repair clothing? And how old are you? I conducted these interviews on a Wednesday between 2 and 5, on a Friday between 2 and 5, and on a Saturday between 12 and 3. My first observation I was conducting while conducting face to face interviews, where I would monitor how long each individual would spend inside certain stores. And my second observation, I collaborated with Dexperium to do observations with clothing collectors around The Hague. The aim of the method was to understand what clothing is currently being collected and why so. And during the observation, I tallied down details on clothing quality and most common types of collected clothing and sizes. I spent about 45 minutes at each clothing collector. For my target group user testing, I organized for fast fashion consumers that I know to come and test clothes made from recycled textiles made by the retailer WeFashion, which is a former collaborator with Dexperium. During these target group user testing, I also asked them a few questions such as: are you aware that textile waste is increasingly becoming a global issue? Does the impact of textile waste on the environment affect what you purchase? And are you satisfied with the quality of this clothing? I also gave them a sample of clothing and I allowed them to interact and try it on. I invited 50% male respondents and 50% female respondents to try and keep the results as consistent and as reliable as possible. The interview results indicate that the majority of fast fashion consumers are 21 years of age, with 33.3% of all respondents to my interviews being this age. The data also shows that between the ages 18 and 21, the amount of consumers rises steadily with age. My interview results also shows that the biggest reasons for purchase and for someone to stop wearing new clothing are feeling and changing trends. According to my research, 60.6% of respondents suggested that a t shirt was the most commonly purchased piece of clothing, with second being sneakers at 45.5%. The respondents also suggested that the most common way of disposing of fast fashion products is to throw them away, with 90.9% of all fast fashion consumers suggesting this is the way that they dispose of clothing. My observation indicated that the average amount of time spent by fast fashion consumer in the store is between 30 to 40 minutes, with 31.6% of people doing this, with second being between 20 and 30 minutes, with 21% of the target group spending this amount of time browsing through the shop. On my second observation, the quality of clothing collected was majority almost brand new quality, with 84.3% of all clothing being in almost brand new condition. About 60.6% of the target group were aware of textile waste's impacts on its environment, which I found out through my target group user testing method, and 100% of all fast fashion consumers were satisfied with the quality of the clothing provided by a collaborator of Texperium, WeFashion. Um, my overall research insights from all three methods were the majority of the fast fashion consumers are in their early 20s. Feeling is the biggest factor when it comes to purchasing new clothes. Feeling is the biggest factor when deciding not to wear certain pieces of clothing anymore. The most frequent fast fashion product is a t-shirt, and throwing away product is the norm for fast fashion consumers. The average amount of time spent by the target group inside the stores is between 30 to 40 minutes, and that most clothing collected from these from clothing collectors is in brand new condition, which most likely means most of the clothing being discarded is also in similar condition. And the results of the insights from my research also indicate that the majority of fast fashion consumers are aware of the impact of textile waste on the environment, and it also indicates that they are, in fact, satisfied with apparel clothing using recycled materials. As most fast fashion products are purchased based on impulse decisions, it is easy to avoid this type of generation of waste, and it has plenty of benefits and values towards deciding a solution as a reason to design a solution. Economically, reducing textile waste would contribute significantly to a nation's economy. Recycling not only creates jobs but saves money from waste generation. Environmentally, due to the unsustainable amount of clothing being purchased, the environment is being destroyed. Therefore, making more having a more smart consumer culture can help preserve the environment around us. And socially, always having to purchase new clothes can have the detrimental effect on a person socially, as you're spending all your money on clothing, something that may not necessarily give you the greatest self satisfaction, whilst also preserving the environment that you live in through not damaging it. Like socially, you feel happier living in a much cleaner environment. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope